Ooh, going live. Yeah, music. Get all the things working real quick. Live dashboard, share link. Coming up. Yep. Looks good. YouTube cache. Clear. There we go.
What's up?
Alright. Bat signals out. Just sharing to Facebook, so we'll get going. People coming in here. Who we got? Impulse. What up, Impulse? Alright. Looking good, y'all.
What's up, Todd?
We are live.
Impulse.
You can see us up on the streams. You can see our pretty faces. And I think we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and start my recording. What's up, Todd? And I am rolling almost. Barton, I'd say you're already rolling. Let's just not poke the bear. Let's just leave it rolling rather than starting over. Just keep a good eye on that recording. You know, audition can stop sometimes for no reason. So just have that up so you can see, as long as you see that waveform, you're good. So if something happens, let us know. We'll pause for the cause. You probably want to tilt your camera up just a little bit, though, because you're cut off on the top there.
I think I'm going to end up slouching over time. So.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Everybody else is good. Are you rolling, Matt?
I am rolling.
Okay. Well, you could probably gain up just a bit on your video, Matt.
See, I did that, but then I don't know. I get blown out on my face.
Then you got to turn your light. You got to turn your lights down, right? I don't know. That looks good, though.
Yeah.
That looks good.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good.
I look kind of jaundicey.
You always look kind of jaundicey on there.
Yes.
It's always. It's your kidneys.
Sounds like the name of an R&B group.
Right? Jaundice C.
Jaundice
Yeah.
All right, I think we're
It
good.
looks better on the YouTube stream than it does on Skype, though.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, it compresses it down to a smaller picture too, so it's like the resolution's better, you know.
Yeah.
All right, I got all my notes up here. I've got some slides, and I think we're good to go. We just did a show on Friday. In fact, I haven't even posted the audio to iTunes.
That's funny.
You know, so what we're gonna do is this one will come out later in the week. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, so we don't have a lot of the usual stuff that we talk about in the show. We do have some, like, week wrap-up things, but we probably won't do the other segments as heavy just because we just did a show. So I've already been through all the material that I had. So just had some good old conversation. So I think we're good to go. If everybody's rolling, let's go ahead and do a sync clap. It'll be 1, 2, 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. All right. All right. Here we go. What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today is one of my favorite people to have on the show. Joining us once again, Mr. Barton Damer.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man, you can email us, info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show. Give us your feedback. Give us topic ideas, requests, interview requests, whatever it is. Let us know what you want to hear on the show, because we think it's really important to be talking about things people actually want to hear. Imagine that. So, week wrap up, first of all. Barton's here. We got a lot to talk about. I think it's going to be a really fun show. And I did want to mention that the Super Bowl was last night, although Matt didn't watch it.
It was?
Yeah.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, right. The Super Bowl,
That's funny. Y'all were talking about the Super Bowl and stuff. I was like, oh man, I can't believe I totally forgot about it.
I was texting you and EJ and David Ariev and about the show, and I'm like, do you think that people did those things on the stage? And you're like, the Super Bowl's going on?
It's funny. This is probably the first Super Bowl that I just like
did nothing,
spaced on. I just didn't care.
We had a big
I did just
Super
have
Bowl party at the party.
So I'm
really?
very, very tired.
Yeah, how's that going, Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. Like 2 nights ago,
Yeah.
it was like totally good. I was like, all right, I got this. I'm gonna handle this. Sleeping, he slept for like 3 hours at night, and then I got up, got him a bottle. An hour later, went to sleep for 4 hours. So I got 7 hours of sleep. I was so pumped. I was like, all right, I got this. Babies are easy. And then he threw me a curveball last night and kept me up all night long. And I was just like, oh,
dude,
Man.
all right.
Yeah, my 19-year-old did the same thing.
That's funny.
A week before the baby came, Matt was like, dude,
But
babies are
probably not because
easy.
He had gas.
Matt was like, babies are easy, like a week before the baby came. And I was like, are you sure you remember what it's like?
Yeah, depends on the baby.
Depends on the baby.
Yeah.
You got to get him used to the being on the formula and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once he's used to it and he's not,
Yeah, the rest is easy.
the rest is easy. Yeah, until they turn
And very cheap too.
3 or 2. 18 months really, because then they're just buttholes.
Yeah, so we were like watching and then kind of texting back and forth, mostly me and EJ talking, and I was like, those visuals on the stage look really cool, because they had like some forced perspective and stuff like that, and I was like, do you think that Beeple was working on that? He's like, I don't know. And then I come home and I sit down in front of the computer, and Jules Urbach posted that all the visuals on the stage were done in Octane, and he tagged Beeple in it, so I'm assuming that was his stuff there. It looked great.
People,
That's awesome.
Mike put some stuff on his Instagram.
Oh, really?
He was there.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the whole team.
Right.
And so he was shooting video and stuff. It was cool.
The one thing that I
cool.
saw that, like, when I didn't notice it during, but I went back and watched it again when I got home. There was a section where there's all these like spherical emoji faces going around and on the stage, and I'm like, that's gotta be people. That it really has that feel. I was like, he probably already had that in his library from some sort of emoji, whatever. And there was a thing that, and I missed the link or whatever, but I think it said something about the visuals at the end, and it said click here to see more about it or something, and I kind of missed that. So I wish I knew what that link was, but I was like, do you click on it and it's just a bunch of pictures of Buzz Lightyear? All right. Here's the stuff that was cut. But
yeah, Mark said in the chat he did it with Possible.
With Possible,
Productions.
okay.
Yeah. So
fantastic
awesome.
show.
A lot of good. Yeah, I guess.
I mean,
I don't know.
You got to go back and watch it. I think that the choreography was absolutely amazing. What they did with this to incorporate the stage, and do a forced perspective from certain camera angles was great.
I did see a few of those shots. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was super cool. So a couple other things, just in a week wrap up, and we're just gonna get to it. Number one, there is I got a link here for Jason Pauly's Simulating Happiness from Node. So you can check that out, because he's talking about mental health, something that we were talking about a while back, and I think people want to hear more about that and talk about that a little more. I will mention that this afternoon, the Monday meeting is actually later today. So at let's see, it's 3 Eastern, 2 Central. So about the time we'll be wrapping this up, you can just walk right into the Monday meeting and go check that out if you want to get more information, because Jason Pauly will be on with them. I'm sure talking about some of the similar conversation to his presentation at Node. So check that out. Also wanted to post this other show. This is called, and it would be great if I actually wrote down the name of the show. I just wrote down episode 80. That doesn't help me any.
All right.
So some guy. No, this is the Rev Thinking podcast with Joel Pilger. Sorry. Episode 80, he had Ryan Summers on, and it's a good interview. Some kind words about Camp Mograph in there, if you want to check that out. And other things in my notes here. Camp Mograph. Let's talk about Camp Mograph updates really fast. Where are we at?
Camp Mograph.
Where are we at?
No real new updates yet. We're gonna. I think we're starting back up the big meetings with the admins and stuff like that, and all the directors and stuff. So we're gonna have some stuff hopefully to announce here relatively soon. For those alumni campers who didn't get tickets during the first initial batch, there's another one coming March 20th. We're doing pre-sale just for the alumni to kind of say thanks for helping us out the first camp.
Yeah.
But actual ticket sales go on April 20th.
420 Blaze
we'll
It.
be at NAB. 420 Blaze It, I guess. Yeah, so that week of NAB is when tickets will go on sale. I think we may announce some of the teachers and speakers and stuff. We've got a lot of them lined up already. We just haven't made any official announcements
Man,
yet.
we have so much fun stuff to talk
good,
about
yeah.
once we get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just the teachers and the speakers and stuff, but we're bringing in a bunch of fun counselors as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But we couldn't have done it without, all of y'all who are planning on purchasing tickets, as well as the amazing sponsors we've got for Camp Mograph. One of them are three village sponsors, of course. Maxon, the fine makers of Cinema 4D and Redshift. We've also got Video Copilot. Everyone knows Video Copilot. We all learned how to do what we do through Video Copilot. So
we all did the fly
thanks to
from
them.
space.
We all did the fly from space multiple times for multiple commercials.
Oh yeah.
And then all the folks over at Otoy, we love them very much. The makers of Octane Render. Those are our village sponsors. So if you're staying in one of the villages, which of course you will be, we'll have a little fun camp rivalry with those. And then one of our gold sponsors is the local Portland studio Minimal Massive. Super pumped to have them on board. So we may have a few more things to announce relatively soon. We've been talking to a couple other places in Portland, and so who knows? We'll figure it out. But stay tuned. If you want to get updates and stuff, go to campmograph.com, sign up for the newsletter and stuff like that, and you'll be first to know when tickets or anything goes on sale.
Yeah, and if you want to check out what it's going to look like, go to campmograph.com as well and look at the about section, the lodging, and get an idea of what it's going to be like.
The lodging is killer this year. I'm so excited about it. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks cool from the pictures that I saw.
Yeah. And it's funny, like the pictures don't even really do it. I mean, it looks awesome, but once you get there and you actually see how cool all these places are, and you're in this super deep wooded area, with zero cell phone service at all. It's great.
All right, let's talk about another event now, shall we? Let's talk about ABCDFWC4D.
Oh, yeah.
Barton, what do you think about that name?
That was a great name. I loved the graphic you guys put together for it. That was perfect.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
If you want to get more information on this 2-day meetup, you can go to mograph.com/events. That's where we're going to be putting all the events info coming up for the year. You want to keep an eye on this page. There's going to be a lot more info about all sorts of stuff. So you can get info on both of these. Each event, this is a 2-day event. It starts with Barton, your 10-year / grand opening of your new building. party.
Dude, the new
Yeah.
building looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Like-
pretty stoked, man.
And seeing all the like, it's fun following your stories online and stuff because
Cool.
you know we've been up there and we see just little bits that are changed each time you post something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then I saw you guys just painted like the railings and stuff. Man, that looks
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, there's a lot still to do, but it'll happen really quick. They've been building most of the things that will finalize the project offsite. And
Yeah.
so this week we should see some massive updates and changes because they'll just bringing everything on site and installing it.
Rock on. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have
Yep.
this shindig, and that's gonna be on a Sunday night, March 22nd. That's going to be gonna be a live DJ and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll have live DJ. And part of the goal of just like partnering with you guys and putting 2 events back to back was that we know there's a strong online community, especially within the Cinema 4D community. And so we felt that if we could create 2 events, it might give people the permission to fly in and check out not only the new studio, but celebrate the 10-year anniversary. And then the very next day, be able to go to the DFW C4D meetup where you guys have Brodeur flying in, EJ flying in,
Yep.
Yeah.
things like that. And they'll be at the open house as well. So, sometimes people just need permission. And so I just thought like it would be cool to just like tell people like, hey, come out. We would love to see you guys hang out, and we got 2 events to make it worth your while. And if you follow the Eventbrite link for the ABC 10-year anniversary party, we give you suggestions of the best place to stay. It's more like a centralized location. So it's we're suggesting the Aloft in Richardson Hotel. It's a really cool area. And from there, you're literally 20 minutes from anywhere you would want to go for the most part in DFW. So from there, you could go 20 minutes to downtown, hang out in Deep Ellum, go to restaurants in various parts of Uptown. And that's 20 minutes or less from that location. You can get to the ABC studio within 20 minutes or less. You can get to the DFW C4D meetup from there. So we were just kind of giving people like their best taste of Dallas by trying to suggest not only where to stay, but also some events to check out while you're there. Everything from the Dallas Zoo to restaurants and barbecue places, things like that.
Yeah, that's what's kind of great about where your place is and where the meetup is there's that string of hotels right there on George Bush is like right in between. It's great. It's the perfect spot. We've got you got this list here. I think I copied and pasted it on ours as well. But make sure if you're coming, you have to have a ticket for each event. So make sure that you sign up for both events.
Yeah, we already have about 120 people registered to come, and we're still almost 2 months out.
Nice. I don't think we have
And
quite that many on ours.
Many people are flying in for it. From what I can tell on the guest list.
Tell those people they need to get a ticket for our event too, so we can get a good head count. We got, I don't know where we're at right now. We're at 50, 60, somewhere in there. I don't remember, but you got to
We're
have.
not as popular as already been chewed.
Right.
Yeah.
I think some of those people got a ticket for yours and they haven't gotten one for the next day yet. Either,
yeah, you
so.
never know. They may assume that registering for one registers them for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So yeah, check that out. DFWC4D, ABC DFWC4D. You can find all the info at mograph.com/events and all the links, everything you need to know. If you have any questions for us as far as Dallas, just hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, all the things. We can help you out. We know the area pretty well. So let's get to talking about some motion graphics business stuff. We love talking to you, Barton, about business. We love watching. Actually, I watched Future the other day.
Cool.
You were in LA and you did that interview. That was a great interview. A lot of the stuff, with Christo. It was a great interview. A lot of it, we I think have talked about. I can't even remember we talked about in person or on the show. But there were some great like new topics in there too. that you were hitting that I'd love to talk about today. You brought
Sure, whatever you guys want to do.
you brought some slides, which we'll bring up in the live stream, but I know most of you listen in audio, so we won't be too specific, so you don't feel excluded or anything.
Yeah, and these slides are just from a talk that I did recently at Digital Motion Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So Tuesday night I did Digital Motion Los Angeles, and then that Friday did The Future with Christo. So within that talk for Digital Motion Los Angeles, there's like just some bullet points of, as I was growing the studio, decisions that I made. Why did I make those decisions? So we can discuss those if you want, or if you guys were watching Christo's podcast and have more questions for me, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and if ever anybody has any questions in the live stream as well, hit us up in there. We'll just take note of those and we'll answer them as we go. The one thing I was interested in talking about was your studio is expanding, and I think at Camp Mograph, Aaron Sorofsky was actually talking about there's that like sweet spot. I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30 people or something like that, where it becomes harder to run a studio because then all of a sudden you're almost forced to have middle management. No,
that was me talking.
Was that
about
you?
it.
I thought okay.
Yeah,
I thought maybe both of you
Yeah.
had mentioned, because she went beyond. She's gone beyond that number, and you haven't yet.
Yeah, she, I think, is actually kind of in, I mean, it's for everybody runs their business differently, but I believe she's around 17 people right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I've been kind of studying, researching, talking to other people about, and then realizing our capabilities is that our sweet spot is going to be between 8 to 12 people. And then I believe that if you get into the 15 or so people, that's where you have to add middle management into the pipeline. And so at that point, you're really cutting into tons of your profitability.
Yeah.
So you better have a growth strategy, because the same amount of managers it takes for 15 to say 20 people is the same amount of managers you would need to if you had 30 people. So if you're sitting at that in-between spot of like 15 to 18 people, you're probably cutting into your profitability quite a bit, unless you're on a growth track to get to like 30 people, because that's going to be your best sweet spot if you bring in that level of like middle management. So for us, it's 8 to 12. Obviously, I can't speak for other people that are sitting in the 15 to 20 range.
How many people do you have now?
We have 11. Two are part-time and 9 are full-time.
Okay. You just hired
Yeah.
a couple new people, right?
Yes, we brought on Ryan Talbot. We've been contracting him back since October, and then he came on board and moved to Texas. Started about two or 3 weeks ago, and then we recently hired Chad Mosley, and he came on to fulfill a role similar to what Aaron Smock does, in the sense that Chad is a senior motion graphics artist. He knows Houdini. He's not afraid.
Right.
He's not afraid of it. He said it's so easy.
And he's a Dallas guy, so he was already here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But of course, he knows Cinema 4D. He's been around the block. He knows After Effects. But he's also at that point of his career where he knows he's worked in enough places. He knows how he wants to be treated. He knows how not to be managed. And he spent 15 years, suffering under management, saying I could probably do this better. And so now we're stoked to have him on board, and so that allows us to, have both Aaron, Chad, and then even myself jump into the pipeline at any given moment, which allows us to expand and contract before we ever have to look outside to freelancers.
It's awesome.
And that's the thing about having middle management when you're expanding as well, is you don't want to just throw in management, just generic management. You want it to be people that actually understand the process, because that's what's so great about your team is everybody understands the process. Anyone can jump in. If you hire just some random person who came from, retail or something, you know, because they have management experience. Is not the same as somebody who knows when they ask something, hey, I need you to change this one thing here. They know that they're asking that person to add like 2 days of work to what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and it just makes me very uncomfortable to bring in somebody that is management, you know, if that equals a higher salary, so be it, and they cannot help with anything billable whatsoever. It just makes me very uncomfortable to go that route with our studio. And you know, Aaron and
What do
I
you mean
have
by
talked.
that?
Okay, so I mean, typically managers are going to come in at a higher salary, right? And so, if we were to be paying somebody a higher salary and their job was to be managing people, well, what happens when we get busy? That person, if they cannot jump into the pipeline and help out, they're being paid a lot to put pressure back on the people who actually can jump in and do it.
That makes sense. Okay.
And so for me, at the size that we are, I was not comfortable with that. We've actually talked to some people that are from our industry that work for some massive studios that were interested in a role like that at ABC, and it just didn't feel right to bring in somebody that couldn't assist in the pipeline when needed.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
So,
And you know, not everybody that's in the pipeline is equipped to move into management or even wants to move into management.
Right.
I don't recommend that. But I like the role for you know, a lot of different reasons. You've got somebody that is seasoned. They're not just coming to ABC to add a logo to their reel and then dip out. They're at a point of their career where they've been doing it. They've earned their stripes, and this is almost like a step of like, okay, now you're in a leadership role. You can help younger artists, and you can also continue to almost like pick and choose what you want to work on. So it's kind of luxurious in that way. When they look at the pipeline and they look at how busy we are, they can kind of say like, ooh, I'd really like to work on that aspect and help with that, you know, if I can do that. And then they can kind of jump in that way.
Some people are just, like you said, they don't want to do the management stuff. They don't want to even necessarily do the art direction stuff, like as from a management perspective. You know, some people are really great with just tell me what to do, you know, just tell me what to do technically.
And some people are so good that you wouldn't want to move them into a management role.
Yeah.
You know?
You like you'd stifle their creativity by doing that. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's not like one's better than another. I think the person with the right personality for this is a generalist that's been around the block. They're good at everything, and they've been around, and they also have a people personality. You know, they can interact with clients well. They're not too introverted. So
yeah.
I think one of the questions that Chris Doe actually brought up as well was how far do you want to take it? How far do you want to go?
Yeah, like you're talking about, you know, keeping your team small, but I know the studio you're building, you could fit twice as many people in there, you know? And it's like you have the ability to grow if you want to, you know?
Yes.
Like
I mean, that was
go ahead.
In addition to, say, real estate investment, part of the reason I wanted to buy this new building and move us into this new building is we're at max capacity in our current building. So once we added Ryan,
you're at max capacity.
Once we had Chad, so it's crazy because we bought this building 3.5 years ago, and so I never thought we would fill it within 3.5 years. So it's awesome, and I would say the inspiration behind growing has always been and will always be the creative. And so it's like we're doing enough cool projects, interesting projects that are challenging, that it makes sense to bring people in to enjoy some of that work with us. And so that's what we're doing. So to answer your question, with the other studio, it at least gives us the option to grow rather than feeling like, okay, well, this is it. Like there's no option because, I mean, you guys know me by now. My creative space means everything to me.
Yeah.
So I literally will not grow the company if we don't have a building to go to.
Yeah.
That's how important it is to me as far as what type of space I'm in. I wouldn't want to go from our current historical building and just, well, we need to grow so that I can try and make some more money, guys. Let's move
Right.
into this corporate office down the street that
Yeah,
holds
that's
20, 30 people. Like that will never happen. Like it'll never happen. And so I would really limit the growth first based off of the space. So if we had not found another space, we probably would be sitting comfortably at the size we are and not really considering growing anymore. So to your point, there is going to be extra space in this new studio that we're building out. So it does give us the option to grow. Now that being said, I do think we're a good size when it comes to artist staff. I do think we could grow, and we could grow relatively easily through adding on what I like to call my hype machine, which is traditionally called salespeople. But
Yeah.
Our team, we could add those types of people on because it's a little bit less risk. It's a salary plus commission, and commission is obviously a motivator behind those things. So it wouldn't surprise me if within the next year or two, the downstairs has 6 salespeople in it, and the upstairs is 9 to 10 artists.
I can see
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So when I
But
talk
you got
about
6 salesmen who are like actually like selling. Don't you
Yeah.
got to bring in more people?
Yeah, only if the work is worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we're creating strategic partnerships and it's exciting work and it makes sense to grow, then we would grow. But I don't really have a vision or desire to grow simply because we could form a relationship with agency Y and do a bunch of work that no one really wants to do or care about. At that point, it becomes a problem for me. You know what I mean? Because I've actually had to talk to salespeople that we've had in the past and say, like, look, that's awesome if you go out and land me a $1 million contract spinning cell phones, but I'm gonna have to go find 8 animators that want to spin cell phones for a living.
Right.
So you're actually kind of creating problems for me.
Yeah.
Unless we're spinning really cool cell phones with really cool motion graphics, like don't go out and land me a bunch of work that people are going to be like, not into or not excited about, because then it becomes my problem. Now I got to find people to do it.
Right.
And you're creating the studio that you would want to work for. That's kind of your MO. Like,
Yes.
you know what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you would like to have if you were working for somebody. In your presentation, you talked about know what you don't want as well, and
Yes.
you had some bullet points on that. Like, for example, you don't want to create brochures and videos for real estate. Dentist, lawyer. You don't want to do wedding videos, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that is something that has really, I guess, driven the decisions that I make behind ABC, whether to grow or not to grow. So like, again, I wouldn't want to grow a company doing a bunch of work that I don't even care about and most people wouldn't care about, but let's just do it for the sake of doing it. And so thankfully the decisions to grow have been because it's like, oh man, if we do grow, it opens us up to even more creativity and even more opportunities. So that's been kind of the decisions that have been made so far. And I tease our team, that like maybe someday we'll all be in our 50s, 60s doing motion graphics, and we'll look at each other and be like, you know what? might be kind of fun just to chill and spin some cell phones. like,
Yeah.
like, like, you know, we don't need to be learning Houdini. Let's just phone it in and do some,
Literally.
like, right? Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I'm not naive to think that down the road, maybe we all grow old together and that happens, but hopefully not. Hopefully we can, you know, establish a brand that is enticing and get young, talented, and continue to thrive in that way creatively.
But down the road, it might be a little bit different. You know, down the road, the way that things are changing in the industry, you never know what cell phone spinning is going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. You know, it could be cell phone spinning for AR, you know,
Yeah.
or,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
who
yeah,
knows? Like, what
yeah.
do you feel, where do you feel that that's going to go? Like, how are you going to adapt to those things? Are you going to stay in a specific genre, do you think? Or are you going to try and branch out to some of these other, like, spaces as they develop?
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to. Like, there's no way you can put your feet in the sand and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. You know, and you could see that just in the last 4 years or so. The work that we have pivoted and are doing now, really ever since we switched to PCs and Octane. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people dug their heels in, stayed on Mac and whatever they're using, physical render, who knows? And the moment Octane came out and PC was even a discussion, I want to say it's been 4, maybe even 5 years now that we switched over, and everything changed. Like, we were no longer doing what I call motion graphics. Like, we became
Right.
a 3D animation studio, and the reason for that is because now we had not only the software, but we had photorealistic render engines, and we had GPU rendering power. And every single month, it was relatively easy to tack on another $3,000 GPU to a budget or two, and just keep adding and rendering. And now it's like we have the power, we use it, and we abuse it. I mean, it's insane what we're doing right now as far as render times. We have so much power in house that we're rendering. We've got our own farm, as you guys know, and we just keep creating frames that are bigger, and the scenes are bigger, the effects are bigger. Like, if you have it, you use it. It's like what they say, like, about budgeting, you know, like, if you're used to
Right.
living off of a certain amount, and then you'll find a way to live off of this amount, you know?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get a raise, all of a sudden you end up spending your raise, and your lifestyle becomes whatever you're making here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I know
that's
that
how we are.
unfortunately all too well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with, like, all of the render power that we have. We're putting together frames. It's kind of humorous. We're putting together frames that take like an hour or 2 hours per frame to render, even with all of the power that's
Good
going
Lord.
on. Yeah, but I mean, we're cranking, and hitting deadlines isn't an issue. So it's been
Yeah.
super fun. So that's been a huge pivot, right? Like, we used to do more like TV show graphics packages, a lot of physical render, sports graphics, you know, things like that, more stylized things. So we've changed into basically creating 30-second feature films, and so we will 100% pivot. I think it's expensive to be on the forefront of VR and AR.
Yeah.
You know, there's some companies that probably have some VC backing that have been doing VR content for the last 5 years. We're not there. We can't afford to do that.
Let those people
so-
figure it out, you know? Let those people figure out the
yeah.
bugs. And because you also don't want to be doing the equivalent of phone spinning in AR right off the bat. Like, it's almost like everybody is waiting for that GPU render breakthrough moment, but on the
Yeah.
AR side and the VR side, you know, because like you said in the presentation, you don't want to be like, you know what you don't want to do? You don't want to be doing video. You don't want to be doing wedding videos, obviously, you know, brochures, and you don't want to be doing the equivalent of that in AR. There will be a ton of that,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, if you guys remember talking when I was talking with Chris Doe, about it. Sorry, I just kind of lost my concentration.
You're fine.
Sorry.
Um, no, it's all good.
People making faces at you through the window. Is that what the problem is?
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay.
The
So
server's on fire in the back.
Yeah.
The VR world right now, it's probably going to be the exact same complaints you're hearing about the motion graphics world and the glory days of motion graphics, right? So if you're at the forefront of VR right now, your budgets are probably enormous.
Right.
And you're probably making a ton of money, which is great for the companies that have the ability to be at the forefront of that technology. And so the budgets are probably amazing. There's probably a lot of mystery into how hard is this actually, what should be charged for it. And eventually it's going to be the exact same complaint as motion graphics. Like people are going to be complaining about the fact that, well, we used to do VR projects for 500,000 or more, and now you can crank a VR project out for like 50 grand.
Right.
So it's going to be the
on his phone.
yeah, it's going to be the exact same thing is going to happen. It's going to be the exact same complaints.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Barton. You know, you guys produce such beautiful work, and you know, like you were saying, what you're putting out is basically small feature films. You know,
Yeah.
have you thought about ever just doing a personal project, you know, for ABC or something like that? I don't know. It's a thought.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. What did you say?
I said, have y'all ever considered doing like, you know,
No,
a personal
I heard
project
you.
or something?
I heard you.
Yeah.
I
But, I mean,
heard
I
you.
know these are all personal to you and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but like I'm talking
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know.
Not for the
Something
grams,
yourself.
not for the grams, not for the publicity,
Yeah.
but because you
No,
feel like it
I
would
mean,
be
of course
something.
for the grams and for the publicity,
Well,
you know,
Yeah.
but like the thing is your work is so good you don't have to do that, you know. I just don't know if
Yeah.
it's ever crossed your mind, you know, because a lot of people
Yeah.
will get into this industry, you know, doing a lot of these personal projects, and they'll get pretty well known, and then they'll get some more, you know, bigger clients and stuff like that, but you don't have to do that per se.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know if
Yeah.
that ever was like
an
a thought
interest of
like,
yours.
yeah, like an interest.
Yeah, it's was the reason I was smiling and being kind of silly with you about not
Mhm.
being able to hear it is I could be pretty sassy right here and just say that I prefer to get paid to do these projects.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it usually works out better that way. So I like to design for the job I want, not the job I have. And so if there's certain industries that we're trying to break into, guess what my creative briefs turn into?
Yeah, the basically the personal projects that you wanted to do. Right, gotcha. Okay. that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. If
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to,
Yeah.
if I'm trying to do title, if
Yeah.
we're trying to break into title designs with say like Netflix, which we've been doing,
Mhm.
Guess what? Some of our shoe commercials are going to look like,
Right.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or our
Gotcha.
watch commercials or whatever. Yeah,
That's a
like
great
I'm
point.
always trying to purposely. Okay, cool. You know, obviously you want to keep the client's needs at the forefront, but
Mhm.
it's art. You can explain why this really amazing Houdini sim is going to fit their project perfectly
Right.
to a certain degree. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that being said, having a little bit larger staff means we can juggle things a lot more efficiently and faster. And so I do think that with a larger staff, you do find like bigger gaps in your schedule. And once you have bigger gaps in your schedule, that's where you can start to generate your own IP. And so something may come from that, you know, now that we are a little bit larger. But currently, if we have downtime, we're usually focusing our efforts on one, you know, generating content for Instagram, putting it out there, the behind the scenes things for our projects, you know, constantly looking for creative ways to repost a project because as you guys know, you post it, it's gone forever. So we're looking for 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways and reasons to post the exact same project. Like, oh, look, here's the vertical version of it. Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
a week later, here's the behind the scenes renders, you know, just so that it doesn't come and go, and get the most, I guess, exposure out of it. But then we are also developing techniques that we feel we don't need to put on Instagram because we can shop it around to our client list and we can say, hey, check out these new techniques we're developing. This would be perfect for like an upcoming product release. And so that's a lot of what we will do in our downtime as well versus like, you know, a big personal project.
Also, let's talk a little bit about the pitches, because when you talked with Chris, you were talking about the fact that you get paid for your pitches, essentially.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so there, let me preface it by saying this. It's all in the way that it's all in the way a client approaches things. So the expectations can either make or break the way you feel about something, right? So for example, if I come to you and I'm expecting you to do this in order to even be considered, and I can see that you've done this a million times before, but I still want you to do something for me for free just because.
Right.
Like it becomes kind of ridiculous at that point. You know, and so if the expectation is there, that's when it becomes offensive, right? Like, wait, you're not sure if we can do a shoe spot? Okay.
Right.
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 Yeah.
So, wait, so you want me to pitch because you're not sure? You know what I mean? So that doesn't really make sense to entertain something like that. However, if there's no expectation to pitch, but we're in a conversation with a client and all of a sudden I feel like that client they're using us. They're not making us dance, and if we dance, they'll pay us if they like the dance after the dance is done. You know, that's where it's, you know, highly just kind of like offensive and non-interesting. But there's plenty of times where I'm developing some sort of a creative brief and I'll run over to one of the guys and I'll be like, hey, is there any way you could like create this little animation so that I can include it in the creative brief? Like, absolutely, we will do that like all the time. But to specifically the way I answered Chris Doe is, yeah, I mean, it's very true. If we have been hit up and say an agency is telling us, you know, hey, we have 3 people that we're reaching out to. Can you guys pitch, you know, a treatment or several treatments on it? We have not really been in that world and have not had to do something like that. So any kind of like pitching on our end has been more so me developing a creative brief, mood boards, inspiration. But we include in our process a concept phase where we would engage with the client to narrow down what would essentially be pitch boards. And so it really is just completely ineffective to, one, not know what their budget is.
Right.
2, not know what they're even thinking, and just randomly shoot it. It's like closing your eyes and shooting with a shotgun and hoping that you hit something. And the client has literally no attachment to it whatsoever, because they're not invested in it. And if someone's not invested in it, they don't value it. And so there lies the problem. There's no value when you pitch a bunch of free work. Now, in talking with Chris, and I recently got to sit down with Jose Gomez, who owns Shiloh, or used to own Shiloh Studios. And it's a different world. It's almost a completely different business model. And I don't know that it exists quite as much anymore. But the whole business model is pitching. And
Mhm.
they'll spend 20, 30, $40,000 developing a pitch. But the difference is if they land it, it's a $1.5 to $3 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I can see where that makes a lot of sense, and I could see why you would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if somebody, we're just not part of that world.
Mhm.
So we've had an opportunity to work directly with clients for the most part, and even when agencies are hitting us up, for the most part, they're hitting us up because of our expertise and because we're creating a brand that I think they would like to work with because of the level of work that we're doing. So by not just literally hoeing yourself out there,
Mhm.
it almost creates a, well, man, I'm pretty sure they can do this. We just need to pay them to do this. You know, so it's, I think avoiding it at all costs. But again, I'm also not, I'm not being hit up to pitch on $1.5 million projects. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I were, I'd probably be singing a different tune.
Yeah, there was I mean, there have been a couple of them over the years, but there was one in particular, and I can't even remember at this point what it was, where we got, you know, somebody on the line who wanted to do a meeting and talk about all these ideas, and to me, it sounded like they were just looking for some free ideas. You know, it's
And that is huge.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. In fact, I don't understand why when you're doing these pitches, like I was going to hit up my lawyer and just say, hey, can you give me a contract that basically says we will entertain this, you know, free pitch.
Mm-hmm.
However, if and when you choose someone else, when that final campaign releases, if we feel any of our pitch was represented in it, you will owe us the fee that's in our concept phase, that's
Right.
in the contract you are signing right now.
Right.
And so at that point, if they would even agree to that, which they wouldn't, but at that point, just pay for the pitch in the concept phase. And we have been in situations where there are pitch budgets. Many times there are pitch
Yeah.
budgets. And I think it's just, what are people willing to do? And it sucks. Like, we recently lost a project. This was not a big project. And we lost a project because somebody went and pitched a bunch of free works as part of their proposal, and the budget was not worth doing it. And it was a project that we've done a million times before. Like, there's no question. Like, we had what they were looking for. We had exact examples of like, hey, we've done this before. Here it is. Like, you actually want a clip that looks almost identical to something we've done before. And they went with the people that did the free pitch. And so it's like, yeah, whatever, you know.
Did you end up actually seeing the finished work of what they did?
No, it's still being worked on. Yeah.
That's something you always worry about. You know, you start pitching stuff and you're like, well, what's going to stop you from just taking this idea and running? You know, and
nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. Yeah.
But you,
Well, here's what's crazier. The pitch has gotten even more ludicrous than what we're talking about. There's a new low in pitching these days, and it is this. We're not doing this, but I'm giving this to you as an example so that I don't give names of the studios that are stooping to this low level. Imagine, this is the pitch, right? So an agency hits us up, asks us to pitch. Imagine ABC now hitting you guys up, and David Brodeur and David Ariev and you name it, several other people. And imagine if ABC says, hey guys, you want to go ahead and pitch boards for this project that we might work on
For free.
For free.
for free.
Yeah.
And now when I present them to the client, ABC looks awesome.
Uh-huh.
ABC wins the project, but ABC doesn't necessarily need to go back to you because contractually, I just got a free pitch from you that made my brand look great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I might choose to finish it in-house rather than come back to you, but thanks for helping me win the job.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the new low in pitching, and it's happening all the time right now.
It's great for the exposure, I hear. The thing is, those people, I think the particular call that I was in, it wasn't even a big deal, but they were asking for ideas, and they were like, it was one of those typical, we need something new, something fresh, something that the kids will love, that kind of thing. What can this look like? And I suggested that whatever they were doing, it fit the bill to make it look like an Instagram story, And you know what? You take that one for free because that's pretty obvious, I think, to anybody, who was doing that particular thing. You look at what they were trying to accomplish and it was obvious, but it wasn't obvious to them. And then they're like, cool. Do you think you can mock up something so we could see it by Monday? And I'm like, well, you talking about paid? They're like, no, just mock it up. I'm like, no. And I never heard from them again. And who knows what they went with, but it reminded me of the time we were talking to somebody and they asked the same question and Matt was on the line. He was like, yeah, we don't do free work. We don't like to work for free, but it's true. It's like you feel sometimes like if I don't do this, then I'm going to lose money. And just by nature, your brain is like, but money though. Right?
Yeah.
But money though, and someone comes to you, do you want to, like, we don't do video stuff at all. We don't go shoot stuff at all really anymore. Like, and we did it at first because we were trying to make it and all that. But money though, and there's that thing in your head that's like, but it's money. So you have to do it, and you don't want to stop and be like, well, wait a minute. Is it really worth it? Is it going to be okay if I say no to this?
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into we've touched on this before, but I think it's good to talk about this again, is when to say no, because many times on different shows you've been on, you've talked about the fact that you got to the point where you're turning down dream jobs. And I can imagine that you're at that point a lot where you're like, it may be like kind of hard to say no to something. How do you figure out what to say no to?
Are you talking as far as pitches or as far as just projects in general?
Even projects in general, because you've been too busy to take the project. It's like they're offering a decent amount of money, but the money that you're getting for X amount of other projects that are on the table, you just don't have any more bandwidth at the time, things like that. And it's somebody you really like, it's somebody you like to work with, but you just can't,
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, last year alone, we turned down a lot of projects, and what hurt the most is that we were having to turn down projects from very good clients, and it was just because we were completely slammed, and we were working with some freelancers, things like that, but we just knew that if we'd taken those projects on, we would have jeopardized the ones we were currently working on. And so it was real projects, real money. It was not a matter of like, oh, there's this project, if you're interested, there's 3 other people. It was like, no, literally, this is a client we've worked with. They have money on the table right now. We want to be able to service and say yes to it, but we absolutely can't. Like, we're going to burn out. We're going to lose this other client that we've already said yes to. And so that happened a ton last year, which was part of the growth in adding, both Ryan and Chad.
Do you worry that, like, by turning some of these down, like if you've got a client who's kind of desperate to get some work done, they're going to have to find a studio to do it. And if you can't, and they go find someone else, are you worried that they're just going to start using that studio? Is that thought in your head?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's let's bring this into.
Let's be honest. ABC is amazing.
No, 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 no. That's not at all. Yeah, I don't.
No, no.
I don't. Let's bring us into a metaphor of a dating relationship.
Okay.
I mean, you've heard the phrase "hard to get," right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't care if you're dating guys. I don't care if you're dating girls. But for the sake of this conversation, let's just say you're dating girls.
Okay.
If there's that girl that's just always around, and she's around, and you know what I mean by that,
Mm-hmm.
is that as enticing as the one that's a little bit harder to get?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that kind of around. Okay. Yeah.
But even it's like, at some point you got to have some self-respect, right?
Right.
And you got to be able to say no, and you got to say no to just like giving it out for free. At some point you got to have a little bit of self-worth and integrity.
Yeah.
We've done that with some clients that have come through and they need something done, and maybe it's not. We're super slammed or whatever it is, and we pass it off to, a friend of ours, and the same thing happens the other way with us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit different from us. I don't think our projects are as on the same level at all, but yeah, that is something that we deal with sometimes. Is like, well, maybe they'll like them more than they like us, and they won't come back.
Yeah.
Do those clients have those clients come back though? The ones that you said, well, we don't have time now, but maybe next year rolls around. Do they come back? Do they try again?
Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
Do you take the initiative whenever? I mean, I'm assuming y'all do. If you find a little lull where you hit them up and you're like, hey, if you're interested in doing any work, we've got some time.
I don't typically hit them up in that way,
Mm-hmm.
because then again, that kind of shows your cards and shows that you're
Right.
kind of desperate,
Gotcha.
desperate for
Exactly.
some loving,
Gotcha.
That was going to be my next
and-
question, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily approach it in that way. But there's always that fear of like, if I turn them down, they're gonna find somebody else. And so that's why ABC is grown. Otherwise I would have just stayed a freelancer, just turned down a lot. But I wanted to be able to create an actual business that could be sustainable and service clients. And so the growth has been because we do have some great clients that we don't want to have to say no to, and we don't want them to go other places. So yeah, of course it's a consideration. And turning them down is never an arrogant thing. It's never a chip on the shoulder like, sorry,
Yeah.
sucker. Like, not a chance. We're too good. Like, not never. Like, it's never that. It's always like, man, I desperately want to help you with this, but here's our situation, and just be super honest with them.
It's almost out of respect to say, look, I know that we wouldn't be able to pay the attention that you want to this project if we did it right now.
Big time. Yeah, and I mean, I can think specifically when it just killed me. We've had to say like no to some major brands, and they came back and said, we really respect you for saying no to that. And so it's kind of back to the
Here's
dating
more
relationship.
money.
Right.
What do you think now?
Now you're playing hard to get. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were actually thankful that we didn't take it on because we were too scared to say no. And they respected us more for that.
I think.
And then
Oh no, go
I
ahead.
will follow up with them too. I'll follow up with them too. So even if we lose a pitch or a job or whatever, like the one that I just referred to, where another company did all this free work and beat us out on basically something we've done a million times before, I will still follow up with that brand, say 3 months from now, and I'll just say, how did that project go?
Right.
And because you never know, it could be a nightmare working with the other company. The
Right.
other company that won maybe used some amazing freelancer to win the project, and then the rest of the process was awful. It was frustrating. They were late. They went over budget. So I will follow up with them and just be like, how did it go? Do you want to work with
Right.
us next time?
Yeah.
And I will say this, and if you are going to require us to pitch,
Hmm.
and we entertain the pitch, the budget just went up a whole lot.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's not that we wouldn't. It's just that, all right, if that's the hoop we have to jump through, guess what? This project just 5x'd.
Yeah.
And along the lines of that, not looking desperate thing, it's because image is a big thing, and you don't want to come across as like, I really need the work. There's always 40 things on my to-do list every day, it seems like. But the reason is because we're thinking, X amount of months ahead or whatever it is. And you've got freelancers who are listening to this. They maybe don't have the resources you do. They don't have the people working for them. They're sitting in front of their desk, and there's usually kind of two states. Number one is that you've got the state where you're working really hard. You've got maybe more than one project on your plate, and of course, you're the freelancer, the lone wolf freelancer. You
Yep.
get done with those things, and then you have nothing, and that's because you weren't kind of thinking ahead, and you were so busy
Yes.
working that you weren't selling. Now in that situation, when you're out of work, you start hitting clients up, or you put out a newsletter or whatever it is, because you're trying to get more in. You don't want to look.
Yes.
You don't want to look desperate. So
Yeah.
it's like again, image is everything. It's like if somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Like you don't want to come across that way. You don't want to sound like business is bad. You don't want to sound like it's
Well, yeah, back
you
to
don't want
the
to mess up
dating
your image.
relationship. Back to the dating metaphor. You don't want to look desperate.
So how do
Right.
you go about kind of keeping in contact with people, keeping in contact with clients, and just sounding like, one of the things that, like you said, is how did that project go? How do you,
Yeah.
I guess, keep your image and your brand fresh on their mind?
Yeah, I would hit them up with new work and have a reason why you're hitting them up and showing them the new work. So, for instance, you might say, hey, check out this new spot we did. We have this really cool effect that we feel like would translate really well if we were to work with you again on an upcoming project, and just wanted to keep you in the loop.
And that's about it, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
What about...
I got something for you. I got a question
Okay.
for you. So I think in one of your slides or something that you put on a Facebook story or something, you said you had marked a day and you said this was officially the day that I stopped, freelancing for studios and started working direct to client.
Oh, yeah.
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 One, what were the steps that you took in order to get to that point to where you were no longer doing work for studios, that it was all straight you,
Yeah.
And how do
It's
you make that decision that this is just what I'm going to do?
Yeah, so from day one, I never viewed myself as a freelancer. So when I went out on my own, I had been in my career for over 14 years. I had done everything from, designing 300-page catalogs to web design to, you name it. I was doing 3D animated spots for broadcasts, things like that. So from day one, I never viewed myself as a freelancer because I had done so many things within the design industry, and had kind of pivoted from print to web to 3D motion graphics, things like that. So that was already my mindset, was that I wasn't necessarily a freelancer. So I actually have never gone into another studio and worked on a day rate before, and I was working remote for some studios for a while. I actually worked remote for Digital Kitchen.
Okay.
I worked remote for Troika, which was a huge sports branding agency. They're still around, but I think they were a much, much larger name, within our industry, probably 10 years ago. And so had worked with them on a day rate. But what happens is at some point you have to make a decision to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that can only be determined by opportunities. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason you have to make a decision for that is three things. You probably heard this talked about before, but there's when you are pricing, there's the cost. How
Mm-hmm.
much does it cost to make this thing? So the cost is your day rate. The price is what you're actually going to charge
Right.
for it.
Right.
And then the value, we hear a lot about the value is determined by the client, and that is definitely true. But the flip side of that is the value is also determined by you. And
Mm-hmm.
what is it worth to you to take this project on? And so that goes both ways. There's certain projects based off of the timeline that you might say, you know what? I understand what the cost is for me to do this between Friday night and Monday night,
Yeah.
but the cost is not the price.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the price is not necessarily the value.
Yeah.
So the client might view this as like, okay, from Friday night to Monday, if I can have this thing by my meeting at 10 a.m. on Monday, it is worth 20 grand to me.
Right.
That is the
Right.
value that the client determined. However, if you're saying that the cost is $800 a day, $500 a day, whatever. So let's just say $500 a day for easy math. So Saturday, Sunday, and let's just pretend you're squeaking in a third day here to deliver it by Monday.
Yeah.
So your cost, you're saying, is $1,500. So now you have to ask yourself, I'm gonna miss my kid's basketball game on Saturday if I
Right.
say yes to
Yeah.
this. I'm going to lose a lot of sleep this weekend if I say yes to this. Therefore, the value to me in order to take this on is not $1,500.
Right.
And in order for me to take this on, I want 5 grand.
Right.
And then the client may say, it's not worth 5 grand to me between now and Monday. And then you get to sleep in on Saturday.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the value is going to go both ways, and then of course the actual price versus cost is another conversation, but that is, you got to account for other things in your business other than just your day rate. So if you stay on a day rate forever, you're processing the cost to do business. You're not processing the price or the value, which means you're never going to profit, which means you're never going to grow. And you can't bring on employees, you can't add health insurance, you can't pay overtime if you don't account for price and value.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to add on the side of, keeping yourself kind of new and fresh in your client's mind. I was going to say, what about social media? Do your clients tend to follow you on social media? Or is it new, I don't want to say leads, that's super douchey. New brands coming to you from social? Is it the current clients that are following? Do you find that current clients like actively engage in your social media? Or
Both, yes.
so they see, and one of the things that I liked that you wrote about, like on your personal Instagram, you put more than just renders, you put like your family photos in there, things like that, because again, when they do ask you for, that, large project to be done in 2 days time over the weekend,
Yeah.
and you're deciding what it's worth, hopefully they're one of those people that sees your Instagram and is like, oh,
Yes.
he actually has a family. He's a real person,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, to that point, the number one way to get business is what? Referrals, right?
right?
Which is also word of mouth.
Yeah.
What do you think social media is?
Yeah.
It's word.
Yeah.
It's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. And the reason we hold so much value to meeting in person And we think that there is value to flying and seeing a client in person and things like that. The reason we do that is because we want them to connect with us as people, as personalities, so that we can work together more seamlessly if we know a little bit more about that person, things like that. So absolutely, my personal social media is very strategically a combination of artwork and family posts, because I want our clients to connect with me as a person and not just a daily render. And so it's super important. And that's where it does take, you don't get as many likes, you don't get as many followers, but it doesn't matter, because the people who are following are people who you're engaged with and doing business with, that you will maybe never even see in person, because they are in California or Portland or New York City, where the majority of our clients are located.
How often do you find yourself doing that face to face?
To be honest, it's not very often.
Yeah.
I will fly to LA probably twice a year, and it's usually around specifically events. So for instance, when I started talking with Chris Do about going on the Future podcast, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be in LA anyway. Of course, I didn't have a trip planned for LA, but I knew that if I could get in LA, there were clients that I was hoping to meet up with that we have worked with and I've never met in person. So it was an easy thing to pull off, knowing that worst case, if Chris were to cancel on me and I'm not on that podcast, I know I've got clients that I can meet up with face to face. And then it just happened that when I was talking with EJ, the Digital Motion Los Angeles was going on the exact same week. So, that trip ended up being 2 speaking engagements, and I had 2 client meetings every single day for 4 days while I was there. So it was a slammed meeting, and several of them were brand new potential clients.
Is there a certain
awesome.
Is there a certain point where you decide whether or not it's worth it to fly and do that face to face meeting?
Those trips are insane. The reason I say that is because anytime I do a trip like that, it can either turn into a vacation or a business trip, and you never know. And it's very stressful, believe it or not, at least for me, if it turns into a vacation, because it's an unplanned vacation. You're there hoping to do business. You scheduled meetings with, say, like one person, and then that again, back to like when and how and why do you hit up other clients? As soon as I get that one meeting in New York City, the rest of the emails are, hey, I'm going to be in New York City, I've got a meeting, I should meet up with you, blah blah. So but what happens undoubtedly is you fly to New York City, and the morning of your meeting, the person says, I'm so sorry, but I have to fly to London and I won't be here for our meeting. And next thing you know, you're sitting in New York City and you're on vacation, and you aren't there for vacation. So that, even though you're in New York City and that's cool, there's other things you could be doing. And so we are typically like scrambling and trying to book as many meetings as possible when a trip like that happens.
Yeah, I was actually surprised the other day because we have a client who we work for another client through this client, and it's a client we've worked for before, and it was a very similar project to what we've done before. And the client's client said something about, well, maybe we could just meet in person before this, and our client was like, yeah, I could just fly you in for the day. And I'm like, you almost feel bad. Like, it's like, yeah, we can do it, but like, I don't want to waste your money on something that could be a Zoom meeting. I'm trying to decide how important is it to the personal relationship to be in front of a table instead of in front of a camera.
Yeah. I mean, all of our business is internet based. I think we have maybe 1 or 2 clients that are in Dallas. And so the trips that I'm taking to the various cities that I mentioned previously are usually just, yeah, let's just see if we can solidify something by meeting in person. But hopefully there's new clients that I can meet up with. And sometimes that helps to kind of force a new client to pay attention, because if you're like giving them something that is of time sensitive, like, hey, you know, Barton's, you know, whether it's my hype machine team, like Donnie and Ariel, if they're out there trying to generate some leads, they can kind of put some emergency to it and be like, hey, Barton's only going to be available in Portland on these 2 days.
One day
Do you
only.
have time? Yeah. Like we've been emailing with you for the last 6 months, but we haven't done a project. Our founder and owning, you know, our owner and founding artist are going to be there. Can he meet up with you in person? And so that kind of helps to solidify and creates emergency to taking a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah. Will in the chat is asking if you've ever worked on retainer and what your thoughts are on that.
If you work on retainer, you are covering your cost.
Mhm.
You are not covering the price or the value. So,
Okay.
All right. Short and sweet. All right. Next thing I wanted to bring up was, again, another topic from future interview, which is about teaching. You brought up the teaching fad. And
yes.
I want to know more about your thoughts on that.
Which is not a negative thing. I hope it didn't come across like I was bashing. Sorry, my neck is a little sore. I hope that didn't come across like I was bashing anybody for making that decision. It's not. It just, I don't know if other industries are this way. But I think there's just such a, it came down to, it's less about teaching, it's less about stock or Patreon accounts, and it's more about frustration with clients and some sort of exit strategy to get out from having to deal with clients.
Right. Well, you were talking about the fact that there's just so many people moving into teaching, and you're wondering why, you know. And I think it is important if you want to go into teaching that you are doing it for the right reasons, I guess. Like for me personally, I think a lot of it is in my blood. I think that there are lots of teachers in my family, and I feel like there's just this just something rewarding about teaching. And like, for example, my old job, you know, I was doing 3D. There were people that weren't doing 3D. And there were people that were doing After Effects. I mean, like Lance, for example, was doing just After Effects, and he was trying to do these crazy 3D things in After Effects. I'm like, dude, you would be so happy in Cinema 4D. You know, let me just show you what this program's about. And then he took it and ran with it. And I feel like for me, doing teaching stuff is because it's rewarding. I like to, if I figure something out, I have this need to share the knowledge. But you have to take a look at it and be like, okay, am I doing this because I enjoy it or because I just can't stand my clients anymore? And if I can't stand my client, and maybe it's not just can't stand your clients, but maybe I think a lot of people are thinking, well, if I could make some side income, then I could be more choosy with who my clients are. I think the people that don't like dealing with clients, like you said, like to that point of not liking to deal with clients, it's not even necessarily the clients themselves that are the issue. It's that they enjoy doing art and they enjoy this craft, but they don't enjoy the business side of it all.
Yeah.
Should those people become, you know, I don't want to say a cog because that's not a good term to use for it, but do they need to become the type of people that go work for somebody and just do the craft and don't have to worry about the business of it?
No, I mean, there's different personalities, right? Like not everybody's cut out to teach, and not everybody's cut out to deal with client work. So again, it was not a negative dig on anybody that is choosing to teach. It was more of a observation, if not a question, as to like, why are we in such a rush to get out from doing the client work.
Do you think that that's because? Do you think that's because the clients are hard to deal with, or do you think that it's that people just are not well equipped to deal with business sometimes?
I could see both sides, you know, like I could see how if you've got a rough client list, and the clients are cheap, the clients are taking advantage of you. Yeah, I could see why you would want to get out from doing that for sure. But then you know, there's a couple things you might have to ask yourself: is why are my clients cheap? Why are they squeezing me? You know, back to the dating thing.
Yeah.
Am I allowing this to
Yeah.
happen? You know,
Yeah.
like, am I allowing my boyfriend to treat me this way? Like, I should probably get out of this toxic relationship. You know, and is my work good enough to attract the non-cheap clients that are squeezing me? Maybe I just need to hone in my craft and get better. Maybe I need to work somewhere where I don't have to feel like I need to get out from clients because I've got people that are handling the clients for me, and I would much rather work, you know, within that system rather than, you know, going back to my list of things that I knew that I did not want to do when I launched out to ABC. So I can honestly say, if those things had ended up on my list within the first 2 years of ABC, there would be no ABC, because I would have just taken a job somewhere else, maybe go on staff at Nike, maybe go on staff at Under Armour or Adidas, who knows? You know, and so that's where my head was at with those things. But I can totally understand if you're in a situation where you do hate your clients and it's not changing for whatever reason. Teaching's a great option to get out from underneath that.
What about when, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but when the honeymoon is over with said client, and they're somebody that you didn't think that they were, you know, they were all, you know, schmoozy and nice and everything at the beginning, and you're realizing their true colors. Yeah. When do you break up with a client? And have you ever had to do that before? I'm not sure if we've asked you that or not before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we actually we had to fire a very large client of ours that, again, going back to my list of things I don't want, I did not want to feel a certain type of way. So if I'm coming to work and I'm dreading a certain client, we have to analyze why do we feel that way? Is there a way to salvage this and solve this? Yeah. Do we need to go to counseling together? Yeah. Or do we just need to cut off the toxic relationship? Because you have to start thinking of a few things. One, is it affecting my morale and my attitude? If I'm constantly upset with this client and just can't stand this client, then, you know, why put myself through that? Two, you have to think of the morale of the people working with you or for you, and it goes back to, you know, not wanting to create a studio that I would not want to work for. I want to build a studio that I would want to work for. So if I constantly have these crappy clients that are driving me crazy, you know, I understand misery loves company, but why bring people into that?
Right.
You know? Yeah. I would seriously consider, and I would go work for someone else where I feel like the work is better, the clients are better, it's more creative. I got a team around me where I can do cooler stuff, and I wouldn't put myself through that toxic dating relationship.
Yeah. Travis asked a question, and this kind of comes back to a little less business and more tech here. And he says, how quickly are you expected, or do you expect your team to finish a project like the New Balance one, for example? He said, I know you have a big in-house team. So he was just curious, you know, how quickly you turn those around.
Obviously depends on the creative, depends on the project, depends on how many rounds of revisions we include in the contract. sometimes clients need something really fast and we can't give them as many revisions. But when you've got, 8 full-time artists on staff, you can divide and conquer a 15-second, 20-second spot really fast.
Yeah.
And I mean really fast. Like,
Yeah.
it's not ideal, but we've done some videos that are worthy portfolio pieces, and we knocked them out in 5 days.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we were at a little meetup just recently with some friends from an old job that Matt and I used to work at, and Lance was there, and our old art director was there, and I'm like, Lance, you got to show him what you've been working on, and so we pull up the already been chewed reel, and he's just like, he can't even get through the video because he's so blown away by literally every shot. Like, he's pausing, he's like, no, wait a minute. Oh, and he's like trying to break it down and look at it, and Lance is telling him what he did, and I'm like, and when we finally got to the end, we spent like 30 minutes breaking down this reel. He was just absolutely floored, and I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure most of that stuff in that reel was only in the last like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
You're cranking out this content so quick. It's absolutely amazing. And you're getting the next client and the next client as that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, 5 days. 5 days is a very extreme example.
Yeah.
We cleared our schedule and we made it happen. But I can honestly say, like, in that 5 days, nobody was working long hours.
Yeah.
Right.
We were out the door by like 7 p.m. And got it done. But that being said, a typical time frame, and this might put a little more context as to why we have chosen not to do like a producer role that can't jump into the pipeline. It's because our time frames are anywhere from, sorry, I got like a sinus cold.
You're fine.
Our time frames are typically anywhere from like 3 weeks to 8 weeks. Like, almost nothing we do takes more than 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we take on these projects, it's real easy to look at our schedule and be like, yeah, we could take this on, or it's going to be real tight if we take this on, and we're going to burn people out if we take this on, because a producer role makes 100% sense if we're dealing with, again, the $1.5 million budget. It's got 4 months to deliver, and you need a producer to make sure that you don't exceed that enormous budget. But ours is happening so quick and so rapidly that it's like the deadline, it's almost impossible to go over budget when you have deadlines that short. So that's kind of like the world that we live in.
That makes sense. Even with like payroll and everything, there's no way you're going to really top a certain number. But how do you project manage when those do kind of fall together? Let's say you get 3 or 4 of those at the same time. You realize you can take it in, it's going to work, but how do you project manage, and how do you, let's say, okay, 3 out of those 4 need Houdini water sim, and you only have 1 or 2 Houdini people available for that. How do you manage how all of that's going to work without people working overtime?
Real quick, remember that question? Something popped in my head that I just want to bring up. So real quick, back to the thought that we were discussing earlier about, are you scared to say no, and will a client come back? I know this is really random, but the good example of this is we will work with David Arieff. And that dude is booked 90% of the time.
Right.
And every time that he's not available, oh my gosh, I just want him more and more. You know what I mean? So I've never once said to myself, oh, David's not available, I guess we'll find somebody else, and never go back to David.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If anything, it was like, oh my gosh, I hope he's available next time I call. Like it just created even
Yeah.
more of like a desire or even
Mhm.
like a mystery of like what would he have done on this project had he been available? So anyway, I'm sorry. I know that was like off. That was like
Yeah.
an hour ago's conversation, but it
You're
just
fine.
popped in
It's
my
true
head.
though. It's true.
So, back to your question about how do you manage that? How do you juggle that? So, it is a juggling act, and it's an insane juggling act, right? Because the problem is you could say no to projects, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
Right.
And so more often than not, you do want to overbook because things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Projects get delayed, clients delay their feedback. So you always need to overbook and really don't say no until you've exhausted your resources
Yeah.
because things happen. And so you do want to overbook. But here's the other thing too is you also want to work efficiently, right? So this happens all the time. We get into a project, we have a creative vision for a project that we think is going to be amazing. Like this is going to be a portfolio piece. We're all super excited about it. And guess what? By round 2, we realize, this isn't going to be a portfolio piece.
Yeah.
We have to dial this back, and guess what?
Yeah.
We can crank this sucker out in half the time that we bid for. So
Yeah.
we are kicking ourselves at that point had we said no to the other project.
Yeah.
So we are overbooking to a certain degree, and we're juggling that because right now Chad can jump into the pipeline, Aaron can jump into the pipeline, I can jump into the pipeline. So to a certain degree, that's how we are juggling that overbooking. And then the other way is thinking of it efficiently. So like, yeah, we could do some insane transition right here that's going to take the next 3 days, or we could do a camera cut.
Yeah.
And we haven't promised the client the insane transition. So let's do the camera cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially with Houdini, things take a long time, and it is not the time to be a creative director that wants to pixel push things around. So we will work with whatever we can get. That's the sim we have. Oh, that's the water sim. Sweet. Let's use that same water sim. We'll put 3 different camera angles on it, and you don't need to stay late or work this weekend.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that creative director that's going to be like, nope, we need a different sim for this
Right.
shot. We need a different sim for this shot.
Work
and
smarter, not harder.
That's kind of how we approach things.
Yeah. Impulse has a question in the chat about your 3D models. Do you build everything from scratch, or do you go to marketplaces to buy 3D models for different things?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to work efficiently, right? So if in my view, the artwork is not in creating the things that go into the scene. Yes, that is a skill set, and yes, the way you approach building that is awesome, and it's artistic in its own right. But for me, it's the assembling of all of those things that someone else has created that makes the final artwork. It's the vision for how was that fire hydrant used in this scene, that automobile, that front stoop on the front porch of this Brooklyn block that we're creating. You guys know when you worked with us on the G-Shock spot years ago, we bought a 3D model off of Turbo Squid that was a Brooklyn scene, and that scene from Brooklyn is, someone did an amazing job with it. They're super artistic in their own right, but what we did with it is where the vision and the artistry came in from my perspective versus the way somebody else might use that exact same model that's on Turbo Squid. So we definitely will buy things, but yes, in-house we can model the products that come across our table. Sometimes clients provide CAD files.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, those CAD files are used as just a blueprint for accuracy, and we have
Right.
to retopo them
Yeah.
and retexture them so that we can either animate with them efficiently, put bin deformers on them, etc. The CAD files usually fall apart when it
Yeah.
comes to starting to animate
Yeah.
those. You know, the UVs are never there. There's a lot of like holes in the geo, broken geometry, things like that. So a lot of times we will have to retopo those things. Sometimes we are 3D scanning them, and when we 3D scan them, that is used again as like a blueprint for accuracy. We're not working with the actual 3D scan in the final if we're doing animation techniques across it. So the 3D scan is like the starting point for modeling something accurately.
Yeah. And the other part of that question is, when do you decide whether or not it's worth it to build it yourself or buy that? Do you have like a certain number where you say, okay, I mean, because some models are expensive, right? You know, if you want a really good model of something, you know, there's some that are pretty up there, but how do you decide, okay, do we spend an hour modeling this, or do we spend $250 on this model off Turbo Squid?
Well, you just answered your own question, right? If you can model it in an hour,
Yeah.
then you might want to model it in an hour. But if creating Brooklyn is gonna take my team, you know, 5 days to model the whole block of Brooklyn, but it's gonna cost $800. $800,
Yeah.
it's like
That's
basically someone's day rate to a certain degree, you know, depending on what they're doing. So that's a no-brainer. Spend the $800 and buy the model, and then go customize it with your own textures and the way that you're going to end up using it in the scene.
Because again, I we've talked about this before, but there are a lot of people out there that feel like it's cheating, you know, to buy these models and over and over again. We're like, well, why is it considered cheating? You know, because if you're going to do that, you're gonna start breaking things down in so many other ways. Oh, well, you didn't make that texture. It was, you know, it was off the internet. Okay, well, you didn't make that 3D software that you're using either. You know,
to that person, the artistry was in creating the texture.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, it was the texture that I chose. It was the lighting that I set up. It was the composition that I chose. It was the camera move, the camera shutter speed. It was the LUT that I put on it. It's the final overall piece that is what I take artistic pride in.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that we're constantly buying Turbo Squid models, because you would see our stuff, you know, repeated everywhere if that was the case. I'm just saying that don't hesitate to do that. If you're not going to take artistic pride in doing it, buy it. But if you want to model that fire hydrant and that's going to, you know,
that's your jam.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, then do it, you know, have fun doing it, enjoy it.
But don't feel bad about it if you don't.
No,
no,
not at all. So, but like typically, you know, we will create our own scenes, and, you know, model as much as possible, but filling that scene with assets and things like that is typically, like, you know, there's a road barrier that exists in a kit bash scene. Let's use that road barrier.
Yeah. Travis is asking about the modeling, and you have people that do the modeling in house. Yeah. Cool. We'll keep this open here for a couple more minutes of questions in the chat. If anybody has any other questions, Barton, are there any other topics you'd like to hit on from, you know, that you've been talking about recently in some of your presentations or interviews?
I mean, I think I'm good. I should probably get going soon, but I definitely, if there are some questions, let's roll with a few questions.
Cool. Well, in the meantime, again, we've got to push this event because we got to get these people out here, come hang out with us, you know.
If you want to talk to Barton one-on-one,
that's right.
Come on out to the event.
Yeah,
He'll
come
answer
out to the open
all
house.
your questions.
And don't be scared to talk to Barton. Seriously, like,
Yeah.
we've been to some meetups and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, I don't want to talk. I can't go talk to him. I don't want to bug him." And you're just sitting over there like by yourself, and like nobody will come and talk to me. It's like because everybody's scared to come and talk to you. Like, go talk to Barton. The new office got a little photo here of what it looks like, looking nice and slick. Now you've made
Tesla Rock in the chat asked, "What was your first skateboard?"
yeah.
Oh, very first one I believe was a Christian Hosoi.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents wouldn't let me buy the ones with skulls on it.
That's funny.
That's great.
I had to get a little bit older before I was allowed to get the ones with skulls.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, this building looks great, man, and people who don't know, you're in this historic area in Wiley, and it looks really cool, and you've made some changes here, obviously. How much are you doing to the exterior?
Exterior, not much. Everything that's green is going to go black. So like those awnings that are there will go become black. And then like the signage is, we took that sign down already.
Yeah.
Other than that, we'll probably keep it as is. It's just a nice looking building. Potentially, we're looking at doing a large mural on the outside of the building.
Oh, cool.
And so we're talking to the city of Wiley about that.
If that's
but,
even okay, yeah.
I'm
I
still
love
well.
that it looks historic.
Yes,
But
Like,
it's not
same
it's
style,
not old though.
But it's not. It's like 6 years old, right?
2014 it was built. Yeah.
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 That's cool.
And
Yeah.
this is within walking distance of the old building.
Yes.
Pretty much. And so you're redoing
Yeah,
it.
and that's one of those things again where I was like, part of this was a real estate investment opportunity,
Mhm.
and the last thing I wanted to do is like approach a team where I've moved almost everybody into the Dallas area for this job and announce to them, hey guys, I bought a new studio space for us in Fort Worth. You guys
Yeah.
excited to drive an hour now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's awesome,
As
right?
I'm
But-
sure you wouldn't be excited to drive an hour.
Right.
No, yeah. But, there's people that would do that just so that they could have the real estate investment, and they would uproot the entire company and expect people to be stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this place was an antiques. What would you call it? And it was like a
That was
shared
a-
space for antiquers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a horror house.
Horror house.
Horror.
Yeah.
Horror house.
Yeah, Donnie was like, for Halloween, you just leave the lights off and let people walk around the antique store.
Oh, yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And you got your plan up here too. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
it's coming along.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it. Everybody come out. Go to mograph.com/events and get yourself some tickets and plan a trip down to see us. Hopefully we'll get some big names down. We've already got some people coming to talk and everything, but hopefully, it'd be nice to see some other artists and stuff from
Yep.
New York, California. Just come in, hang out with us. Come in early. Shoot, we'll be hanging out early. EJ's coming in early.
Yeah.
We're gonna hang
Jay and
out.
Brodeur are coming in on Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll have plenty of
Yeah,
time.
yeah, for sure.
Nice. Cool.
Cool. All right, so I think we're gonna skedaddle. That's about it for today. I've got like 2 shows
Do
to
it.
post, I guess.
I
a
gotta
little
go
work
take
to
a
do.
nap. I'm so tired. I'm sorry. I was quiet this whole time. I was looking at myself in the YouTube and I was like, "Oh, dude, your eyes are so droopy. Look, like you're about
It's
to
funny.
fall asleep."
You look like you got
Oh.
a 2-week-old in the house.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Well, if anybody wants to check out the reel and everything else, go to alreadybeenchewed.tv. Barton, what about your other socials? What is everything?
Yeah, at Barton Damer, BartonDamer. And then, of course, you mentioned it at Already Been Chewed.
So, at Barton Damer is already been chewed on Twitter, right?
Yeah. So what happened with that was I was heavily involved in Twitter in the early days.
Yeah.
And we've actually landed some pretty big clients via Twitter. And then there was this time period where I just kind of assumed Twitter was dead because it felt like it was dead.
Yeah.
Still
Uh,
thinks like it's dead.
and
Yeah.
I focused all of our efforts on Instagram for ABC. So as a result, there's never been an ABC Twitter account. And then in the last like year, it felt like there was a resurgence in Twitter. So
Mm,
rather than start an ABC Twitter account that has like 10 followers, we just kind of push things out through my personal account on Twitter.
Mhm.
yeah. Cool.
That's cool.
So already been chewed on Instagram, and do you guys have a Facebook page or no?
We do, but I mean, there's only old people on Facebook,
Right.
so
Right?
We just put it
Old
out there as a
political
courtesy.
people, like,
Yep.
Yeah.
The boomers.
The
Yeah.
boomers. Oh man. Cool.
lots of political posts, right, Dave?
No, I
Right,
don't know what you're
Dave?
talking about. I never post on Facebook ever. Uh, um, we're gonna get out of here though. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. You can subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, and make sure that you subscribe to the newsletter so that you can get info on things like events and shows that are coming up. We've got some random late night live streams that I think we're going to be doing. Talking to if you listen to the stream or the audio from last week, talking about doing that late night render deal. I'd love to get some people on, like representing each render engine, so we can really dig into some of the details and finally decide what the best render engine is. No, just kidding. But we are going to talk about that because I think it's going to be a super like ultra render nerd fest once we get that going. I'm going to start hitting up a couple people, see if they'll be on. So you'll get all that information if you sign up for the newsletter. And make sure, again, I've said it a million times, but go to mograph.com/events if you want to know about stuff going on. NAB's coming soon. You're going to want to see, okay, what's going on this day, and what's this party, and how do I get tickets for this thing? We're going to try and put all that information out there in one place for you. And also, if you want to find out about events in your own city, and if you have an event that you're doing in your city, if you're starting a group,
Yeah.
hit us up because we will definitely put it on the page. We want everybody to have that community information. So hit us up, let us know. Also, you can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb, Fuel the Bab 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders, the Render Things
You're not
t-shirt,
gonna vote
hoodie,
for
and
Paul
long
Babb,
sleeve
vote for Bernie.
tee. And then, Paul Babb, I believe, is a write-in this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Bernie will hopefully be on the ballot, so
There you
vote for
go.
Bernie.
And then also
Feel the Bab.
feel the bab, and make sure that you also check out the That Render Is Fire shirt, but you're only allowed to wear that ironically. So we're gonna get out of here.
There was something in the chat where that we should make another shirt. I can't remember what it is now.
But money though.
But money though, yeah.
But money though.
But money though.
Yeah, we need a new shirt for this year's NAB
Yeah.
or something. So.
Yeah. But money though.
Which you can also find the merch at mograph.com/merch. So check that out.
Yep.
We're going to get out of here. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, mograph.com. We're also on TikTok because I think that's what the kids are doing.
Are we?
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, we got an account now. We got to figure out what to do with all of that.
You can dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to do a choreographed dance
Yeah.
about Mograph. So,
No.
Hey, we're on TikTok too.
yeah,
Yeah. Hope you enjoy China knowing all your information about you.
I'm pretty sure it's too late for that.
TikTok
They
girl,
got it
shut up,
all.
man.
They got it. Isn't Beeple's on there pretty hardcore, right?
You know what? Isn't it? I like TikTok when it was called Vine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked
And then
Vine,
Vine
and I
went
want
away.
another Vine. I loved Vine.
It says boomers on Facebook that goes gross to TikTok.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. I got to keep up with them times. I was sitting at what was it? Oh, they showed them. Have you seen The Masked Singer? Have you
I have
seen
seen
this
it,
show?
yes.
Have you seen
Yeah.
how utterly ridiculous it is? Like, not in a bad way. I mean, it's kind of entertaining how outrageously crazy the show is, but like we were sitting there watching it after the Super Bowl because it was what came on, and I forget exactly what happened, but something was just so ridiculous, and the shots of the audience were enjoying it way too much. I looked at everybody and I said, "So, what do you think's going to be on TV in the year 2020? I bet it's going to be awesome. And it's like, nope, this is it. This is what we got.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
All right.
we're going to get out of here, get some rest and get some sleep and do some
Yeah.
things. So appreciate
Barton,
you being on,
as always,
Barton.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on the
It
show.
was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be contacting you about more plans here pretty soon. And maybe doing some more serial
Word.
renders. So,
Nice.
all right. Until next week, I'm Dave.
I'm Matt.
And you're Barton.
You're Barton.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
Have a good one.
Later, yo. Gonna take a nap.